Okay, let's dive in. Picture this scene. The startup founder, right? Buzzing with energy, probably in their 20s.
Yeah, the classic image.
Fueled by late nights and big ideas, maybe in a garage or, a dorm room. That's the image we often get, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's this pervasive idea that major innovation, hitting it big, especially like in the entrepreneurial world, it's a young person's game.
Exactly. It's sort of the dominant narrative. You see it everywhere, these wonderkin founders celebrated in the media, disrupting industries before they can even rent a car.
Right. But what if that whole narrative is, well, maybe mostly fiction when it comes to the biggest successes?
What if the data tells a completely different story? That's exactly what we're digging into today. We've pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources here.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
We've got some really heavy-hitting academic research, using massive data sets alongside these incredible collections of inspiring stories, people achieving amazing things or completely reinventing themselves later in life.
Right. So our mission really is to cut through that popular myth using both the hard data and these, real-world examples.
We want to understand the surprising truth about age and success, especially when it comes to starting those high-impact ventures.
And figure out what this fundamentally means for you listening in.
Okay, so let's get straight to the data, the stuff that really challenges that young founder myth. The centerpiece here is this major paper, Age and High Growth Entrepreneurship from MIT Sloan.
And when you look at how they did this study, I mean, it's pretty compelling stuff.
How so?
Well, they didn't just rely on surveys or, anecdotes. They used these extensive U.S. administrative data sets pulled from the Census Bureau, IRS records like K-1s and W-2s,
Yep.
patent office data, venture capital funding info. Basically, they tracked founders and how their firms performed across the whole country between 2007 and 2014.
Wow. So like a massive objective view, hundreds of thousands of companies.
Exactly. Incredibly broad and objective perspective.
Okay, so what did this huge data set actually reveal about the age of people starting companies?
Well, first off, the mean age for founders of all new businesses that successfully hired at least one employee
Mm-hmm.
was 41.9 years old.
41.9. So right off the bat, the average founder hiring people is already, well, into their 40s.
Yep. Already pushes back against that 20-something image, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, interesting. But what about the really successful ones, the companies that don't just hire a few people but achieve that explosive, like high growth, the top tier?
Uh-huh. And this is where the surprise really hits, I think. The mean age for founders of the highest growth new ventures in their study, and we're talking the top 1 in 1,000 companies here, was 45.0 years old.
45. Seriously. So not only is the average founder in their 40s,
Mhm.
but the founders building the absolute most successful high growth companies are, on average, older still.
That's what the data shows.
Wow. That completely upends the usual narrative.
It absolutely does. And they drill down even further, looking at the likelihood of achieving that kind of, upper tail growth based purely on age.
What did they find there?
They found a 50-year-old founder is 1.8 times more likely to achieve that upper tail growth compared to a 30-year-old founder.
Almost twice as likely. That's a huge difference.
It is significant.
And what about the common heroes of the myth? The founders in their early 20s.
Well, according to this specific data set and study period, founders in their early 20s actually had the lowest likelihood of creating a top growth firm or having a successful exit.
Lowest. Huh. Now, I bet someone listening might push back and say, okay, fine, maybe that's true for like small businesses or traditional industries,
Right.
but surely not in the rapid fire world of high tech or in places like Silicon Valley where all the disruption is happening.
And yeah, the study anticipates that exact point. They found these results hold true even in high technology sectors.
Really, even in tech.
Yep. The average age for high growth tech founders is also firmly in the 40s. And yes, that includes founders within those famous entrepreneurial hubs like Silicon Valley.
Okay, so the data isn't just suggesting a little nuance here. It seems to pretty definitively show that the highest likelihood of building a massively successful, high-growth company actually comes with age and experience, not youth.
Exactly. It really forces you to ask why. Why is this the case? If the statistics show older founders have this higher batting average, so to speak, for the biggest successes,
Yeah.
what is it about accumulating years that provides that advantage?
It feels like it must point back to leveraging what you've, gained over time.
Precisely. The MIT Sloan paper highlights human capital as a key factor. They specifically found that industry-specific experience dramatically increases success rates.
How much?
Well, get this. Having just 3 years or more working in the industry where you start your company, that can more than double the success rate for those top 1 in 1,000 firms.
Wow, double. Just from 3 years of experience.
Right. And older individuals, simply by having more years in the workforce, have had more opportunity to build that deep industry-specific knowledge.
That makes so much sense. It's not just like theoretical knowledge from a book.
No, yeah.
It's understanding the nuances, the unspoken rules, where the real problems actually are, who the players are, stuff you only learn by being in it.
Exactly. That accumulated experience helps you identify genuinely underserved needs, helps you navigate complex market landscapes, build trust faster,
Right.
and perhaps most importantly, anticipate and avoid those common pitfalls that often derail less experienced founders.
Okay. And the paper mentioned other things too, right? Like resources.
Yeah, the paper also suggests older entrepreneurs often have greater access to financial and social capital.
Hmm.
Years of working can mean more personal savings to fund a venture
True.
and a wider, deeper network of contacts for advice, partnerships, maybe even funding.
And you see the same powerful advantage playing out in those incredible personal stories we looked at too, right? It's not just abstract data points.
Absolutely. These are, real lives that demonstrate the power of experience, resilience, and vision, things that often take time to build.
So the stories kind of back up the stats.
They provide the vivid examples, yeah. Think about some of the legendary figures who started their defining work later in life. Ray Kroc. He wasn't the founder of McDonald's.
Right. He sold milkshake machines.
Exactly.
Hmm.
He was a milkshake machine salesman who discovered the Brothers Restaurant at 52 and then bought them out at 59 to turn it into the global giant it is today.
59. Wow.
Or Leo Goodwin. Founded Geico at 50. And the real explosive growth phase, that happened when he was in his late 60s.
65. Harlan Sanders was 65 when he started franchising KFC after perfecting his recipe and facing years and years of setbacks.
Bernard Marcus was 50 when he co-created Home Depot.
Huge company.
Bob Kierlin founded Fastenal, a major industrial supplier, at 56. Wally Bloom created Denali Flavors, famous for Moose Tracks ice cream, at 57.
Moose Tracks. Okay.
Charles Flint, kind of an early computing history figure, he orchestrated the merger that created CTR, which later became IBM. He was 61.
61 for IBM's predecessor. And it's not just these, like, historical giants, is it?
No, not at all. More recently, Chip Wilson founded Lululemon at 42.
Okay.
Gary Heaven started Curves at 40. Robin Chase co-founded Zipcar at 50. Reed Hastings started Netflix at 37.
These are hugely impactful companies, not founded by people fresh out of college.
Not at all. And the principle, it extends way beyond just business. Think about the sheer determination of someone like Helen Keller.
Incredible story.
Became deaf and blind at a young age, yet with immense perseverance and, the guidance of Anne Sullivan, went on to become the first deaf-blind person to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. A renowned author, a tireless activist well into her later years.
Amazing.
Or Ray Charles. Lost his sight at 7, but became the genius, right? A music icon who blended genres, won countless awards, showing that overcoming profound challenges and achieving mastery can happen despite huge early adversity.
These lives, yeah, whether in business or other fields, they really underscore the themes we see in the data, don't they? The immense value of accumulated experience, the perspective gained from navigating challenges, the resilience that lets you keep pushing forward, all things that often deepen with age.
Which brings us nicely to this concept of personal reinvention.
Yeah.
That was a powerful thread we found, for instance, in that original McGuy article.
Oh, yeah, that article really hammered home the idea that it is genuinely never too late to reinvent yourself. The example that stuck with me was Sarah Sarkis's mother reinventing herself at 55 after a major life change.
Yeah, and the key point there, I think, is that reinvention isn't about, discarding your past. It's not throwing everything away.
Right.
It's about taking the core of who you are, all that accumulated experience, those skills you've honed, the resilience built from every success and setback, and applying it, breathing fresh life into a new direction or a new path.
Just like the author of that piece, Jim Eager, describes his own multiple reinventions, not just in his career, but even into what many people consider traditional retirement age.
Yeah, shifting from lawyer to chaplain.
To blog writer, then a park volunteer at 63, 70, 71.
It just shows that growth and transformation are, lifelong possibilities.
So the trigger for change could be anything, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hitting a ceiling in a career, planned or unplanned retirement, a personal event, or just that powerful urge for something different. The important takeaway is that the capacity for that change
Yeah.
and the ability to leverage everything you've become, it remains, it's always there.
Okay, so bringing this all back to you, listening right now, what does this deep dive fundamentally mean for you?
Well, I think it's a really powerful antidote to any internalized ageism we might carry. You know that quiet voice that sometimes whispers you're too old to start that business or change careers or go back to school or seriously pursue some passion project?
Yeah, that little voice.
The data says otherwise.
Yeah.
It really does.
So it reframes age entirely. Instead of seeing it as a limitation, maybe look at it as a potential advantage.
Exactly. All that experience, those unique skills you've developed over the years, the network you've built, the resilience you've cultivated just by living and navigating life's complexities.
Right.
The data and the stories suggest these are potent assets, not burdens.
It feels genuinely empowering, actually.
It really is. It solidifies the idea that the potential for significant growth, for learning, for impactful achievement, it doesn't just peak early and then decline. Your journey of transformation and creation can absolutely continue, drawing strength and unique capability from everything you've gathered along the way.
So to sum it all up then, we've seen how this rigorous data, from that big MIT study, completely flips the common narrative on its head.
Yeah, showing older entrepreneurs are statistically more likely to build the most successful companies.
And this isn't just some statistical anomaly. It's echoed in countless inspiring stories of people achieving monumental things and reinventing themselves well into their later years.
Proving the enduring power of experience, resilience, and vision.
The combined evidence paints a pretty clear picture. Age isn't a barrier to starting something significant or transforming yourself.
In many ways, it seems it's actually a powerful enabler.
Okay, so final thought then. Considering the incredible power of that accumulated experience and resilience that the data and these stories highlight, what might you be uniquely positioned to create or achieve right now, building on everything you've learned and lived through so far?